You have to suddenly lose yourself, and you have to be prepared to laugh, cry, and forget who you are.
I was weeping myself at the idea of the power of this damn thing.
All theatre is rubbish. What we must do is to have sensation and scenes that engulf the audience.
The human face has on it a kind of death, I suppose, and it's up to the actor to give it life.
Richard Eyre presents his view of the theatre in the 20th century. Changing Stages starts Sunday the 5th of November on bbc2.
A review of the week's headlines now on BBC2. What the papers say.
This week, What the Papers Say is presented by Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian.
Hello. It's that gloomy time of year. The nights are drawing in, the autumn leaves drift by your window, and teenagers scream trick or treat through your letterbox. Surely the newspapers have got something to cheer us up. Oh look, here's something in the Telegraph.
Cot death linked to kisses from mothers.
It is possible that the infection is passed to babies in their parents' saliva.
As the late Sir John Jr. would say, it's a story to make you pull the duvet over your head and turn your face to the wall. What about this one in the News of the World?
An animal rights demo against cruelty to lions ended in tragedy when 3 of the protesters were eaten by the animals they were trying to save.
Bummer.
The 3 were among a crowd trying to stop bulldozers moving on to the Gonareju Reserve in Zimbabwe. When a pride of lions approached them at one of the park gates, no one realised the animals were agitated.
Why not, for heaven's sake?
A lion in stress twitches its tail in a certain way,
said the ranger.
Unfortunately, these people were townsfolk and unable to recognise the signals.
The silly liberal townsfolk. The urban, progressive elite that makes the tail of every right-wing newspaper twitch like mad. Just this week, The Sun published its bizarre
A to Z of Britain's metro elite.
An outburst of chippiness and paranoia evidently sanctioned by the powerful and well-connected London-based newspaper executives at The Sun.
They are the metropolitan elite, trying to rule our lives. Tonys, cronies, Blair's stooges, call them what you will.
I leave that sort of impertinence to you, thank you so much. And who are they anyway, these incarnations of pure evil?
H is for Max Hastings, the editor of London's local paper, The Evening Standard. H is also for Mick Hucknall, the ginger-haired Simply Red singer who helps fund New Labour.
Well, Max and Mick are always lunching together at Brooks's.
X is for...
the X-Men? The degenerate punk band X-Ray Specs?
Ex-EastEnders star and New Labour activist Michael Cashman.
Does the phrase "get a life" mean anything at all? The Sun's Metro Elite hate list signals the restart of political business as usual. MPs returned from their mammoth summer holidays, and the first order of business was the election of a new speaker.
Working-class Scots Labour MP Michael Martin was elected by the Commons as its first Roman Catholic speaker in Times last night.
Traditionally, this is an uncontentious event and a nice, respectful, feel-good moment for the newspapers. Not this time.
An abuse of democracy results in the wrong victor.
The chaotic series of votes superintended by Father of the House Edward Heath made Peter Riddell's blood boil.
The worst candidate for Speaker was last night elected in the worst possible way. Michael Martin is a mediocrity who has never shown the potential to fulfil the demands of the speakership.
Simon Hoggart was in despair.
Piss up in a brewery, this lot couldn't organise an orgy in a massage parlour or a sit-in at the Parker Knoll factory.
The papers wheeled out sketch writers to take the mick out of Mr. Martin's non-metro elite Scottish accent.
But perhaps, as in the film Billy Elliot, someone as rough as Billy's father would have caught wee Martin wearing black tights and shouting, "Order! Order!" when it was assumed that he was at his boxing lesson.
Chortled the Telegraph's Frank Johnson.
The little boy would have been brutally informed.
We're no having a lad of ours end up Speaker of the House of Commons. That's for girls.
Well, everyone agreed that this mess made the crumbly old father of the House, Sir Edward Heath, with his silly votes, look pretty awful. To Simon Hoggart, he was...
Mr. Grumpy.
To Quentin Letts, he was...
magnificently creaky, his eyes as watery and mournful as an elderly Labrador's.
But the next day, Heath went and announced his retirement to the next election, and the papers suddenly had to stop jeering at Ted and keep a civil tongue in their heads. The tones were now respectful and elegiac as they reviewed the great man's 50-year career. On Tuesday in The Independent, he'd been
the vast-sagging ex-PM, passed over, it is believed, for his part in Gormangast.
Overnight, he became
Sir Edward Heath, the former Conservative Prime Minister and Parliament's longest-serving MP.
He was
an international-class yachtsman.
The paper declared
Sir Edward's robustness and diplomatic skills have always impressed his House of Commons colleagues.
Always. The appalling Speaker vote fiasco, just 24 hours old, is now quite forgotten. George Jones in The Telegraph had acidly described Sir Edward's
archaic and confused voting procedures.
What a difference a day makes. By Wednesday, the same correspondent was writing,
Sir Edward Heath could not have wanted a better swan song.
Dear old Ted, it seems,
presided over a marathon procedure which allowed all the candidates, even the no-hopers, their say.
Sounds like a lovely system.
But it was a fine performance.
Well, de mortuis and all that. The parochial argy-bargy of parliamentary politics made a welcome change from the continuing horror of what can only be described as the Israeli-Palestinian war process. In The Times, Sam Kiley filed a stunning eyewitness report about guerrilla training given to children.
Hosni Sameh Intair, who turned 12 in September, said,
In France, the young don't throw stones. They watch TV and use the internet because they don't have enemies. Here we have enemies, so I throw stones and then work on computers in the evening.
Which must be the most blood-curdling quote from a frontline reporter this year. In Monday's Guardian, Peter Preston wrote that images of dead children were a vital propaganda tool for the Palestinians.
The children are first in the firing line by design. They have become cannon and media fodder.
He concludes,
the truth here is not merely that the young men of Israel are shooting the young boys of Palestine, but that we, the reporters on the spot, the cameras, the editors at home, and you in your living rooms are vital factors in this vile equation.
Very carefully, Israel's defenders are emerging in print. Alex Brummer in the Mail, a cautious and even-tempered voice, claims that the new uprising has economic roots in deprivation, and claims
there have also been deep-seated worries among aid workers that funds intended to establish proper administration and for economic development have found their way into the bank accounts of Arafat and his associates.
In The Guardian, Linda Grant gingerly advanced a defence of the Israeli mindset from the liberal left.
What will it take to make the Israelis see the Palestinians as a wronged people in pursuit of justice, the victims of Jewish racism? Not yet another photo of a murdered child, nor even a whole album, but only peace itself will do it, which is why the Israeli left felt so badly let down by the new Intifada.
Which may be true, although from a Palestinian viewpoint, talking about the Intifada letting down the Israeli left looks uncomfortably like blaming the victims. And the never-ending dispute about victim status returned in this week's strangest celebrity story.
Anthea.
Brutal Bruno Brooks used to beat me.
But Anthea had also given her story to the Sun's hated enemy, The Guardian, the same day.
I felt it was my fault.
Which carried a horrendous photo of Anthea and Bruno in the 80s. The paper treated her claims carefully and seriously, but the Sun's rival The Mirror was derisive the next day when Bruno vehemently denied these charges. And from Linda Lee Potter's column in the Mail came the traditional popping noise, the sound of Linda's claws piercing the eyeballs of a younger female celebrity.
It's surprising that in a so-called no-holds-barred autobiography she chose not to mention Bruno's alleged brutality.
What are you getting at?
It's no doubt cynical of me to think it is not totally unrelated to the fact that she's been vilified for her ghastly memoirs and her greedy wedding.
Well, it's a saucer of milk and a jumbo portion of whiskers for you, Linda. The Sun itself is now a bit quiet about its Anthea exclusive, and perhaps they wish that Anthea was as reliable as one of their biggest star turns.
Liz Hurley and her new mane. So sexy, so in love. Stunning Liz Hurley plants a lingering kiss on the lips of her new boyfriend, millionaire film boss Steve Bing.
Look at those genuine unposed photos.
At first, Liz seemed embarrassed as she realised her saucy antics may have been caught on camera.
Possibly, yes, possibly. In the News of the World, Liz was shown at the VH1 Fashion Awards in New York.
Bedazzling. Liz took the plunge too.
The paper commented.
Liz Hurley turned up with bedazzled co-star Dennis Leary.
Bedazzled, incidentally, is the name of Liz's new film. That's right, Liz has accidentally allowed the tabloids to glimpse her sensational new love just days before her latest movie premiere. That's what I call a trooper. Good night.
You obviously regard me as a pervert. I regard you as a bigot. You regard me as a homosexual as being dangerous. I regard you as a Muslim as being a fundamental danger to democratic society. Do I have a right to say that? How can you and I live at peace with each other?
We have a duty to each other, and that is the very first thing we have done, is to listen to each other, and patiently and in a constructive manner. That is the first step.
One of the ways the young think they're safeguarded against the fate and future of their grandparents is by their names. Sharons don't suffer from dementia, or Damians from incontinence, and if the old ones can think at all, they must wonder if it's their names that are part of the trouble. The trumpet has not yet sounded for Trevor, but it will.
An Evening with Alan Bennett begins with Telling Tales, his personal and childhood memoirs, next Saturday at 8:55 on BBC2.
Now on BBC2, more Paralympic action with Claire Balding.